Hello guys, Pedro here. First of all, welcome. Today I will be showing you how to create an Active Directory lab on your own computer, using VirtualBox. This lab environment is a pretty basic one. It will have Active Directory and just a few networking services that, eventually, will continue to be used on future videos. I am mainly using this lab for my own practice. I want to completely grasp the understanding of configuring and running a virtual lab, to manage Active Directory as well as practice Windows networking in general. If you are like me, someone that is starting and wants to break into IT, I strongly recommend that you follow this lab with me. If you do, take your time and try to understand why we are doing what we are doing, and if you're feeling lost, just rewind a little bit and watch the steps again. It is recommended that you run this lab a few times just to get you used to it and develop your base knowledge. If you decide to recreate this lab, as an example, you also can get a better grasp on how a school or office environment might work, as well as how a user can log in and log out from different computers, and his profile always follows him. This is my network diagram. It is very handy and helpful to take the time to create your own diagram when you want to do a lab like this. It will not only save you time, but once you have it, you will understand and plan accordingly all your steps you need to follow for the lab completion. On this diagram, you will see on the left-hand side, all the things you will need to download to be able to recreate this same lab. First, you need to download VirtualBox. This is the program that will allow us to create our server and client's virtual machines. Even though I haven't mentioned in the diagram, you can download from the same website an extension pack that contains a little program called VirtualBox Guest Editions. That will definitely improve your experience, as it gives you the ability to resize your virtual machine window. Second, you need to get a Windows Server 2019 ISO. This is what you're going to use to create the Server 2019 virtual machine. Third, you need to get the Windows 10 ISO. This is what you will need to create the Windows 10 virtual machine. You can get all links on this video's description. Now I am going to give you a quick walkthrough of what we will be doing from now on. Look at the diagram. We're going to be creating our first virtual machine. This is going to be our domain controller, which is going to house Active Directory. This virtual machine will have two network adapters. One is going to be used for internet access. It will be connecting to our home network, so there is no need for configuration. Our second adapter will be for our virtual private network, where our client/users will be connecting to. We will be changing its IP, subnet mask and DNS address. Then we will proceed by naming the server. We will then install Active Directory domain services and create our domain. After that, we will configure NAT and routing so that our clients in the virtual private network can reach the internet through the domain controller. Next, we will set up DHCP on the domain controller, so that when we create our Windows 10 virtual machine, it can automatically get an IP address. Last thing before we actually install the Windows 10 machine is to create the users that will be joining our domain. For the sake of simplicity, I am only going to create one user. Only thing left to do now is to actually create our Windows 10 virtual machine that will connect to our virtual private network. After that, we are going to be naming this virtual machine and make it to join our domain. We will then log in with one of our domain accounts. At this point, we will be finished with our lab, but I will be using command line to test the connectivity on our client virtual machine, and after that I will be showing you where you can see specific information about our newly added virtual machine in our server. Let's open VirtualBox. Now we start by creating our first virtual machine that will be hosting our Server 2019 OS. On the top right, select New. I am going to call it DC, short for Domain Controller. Now we are going to select the Server 2019 ISO that we have downloaded. Tick Skip Unattended Installation and click Next. We will be presented with the hardware specification window. Let's allocate 2 GB RAM and 4 CPU cores. Click Next. Next and then Finish. Now our DC or domain controller is created, but there is still nothing in it. Before we proceed with the Server 2019 installation, we have to change some important settings. So on Settings, Advanced tab, select the bidirectional option on Shared Clipboard and drag and drop. This is an option that will enhance the overall experience and not only can help with the transition between your machine and the virtual environment, as well as it will give the option of simply drag a file from your machine to the virtual environment. Now select Network tab on the left. As observed in my diagram earlier, the domain controller will have two network adapters. The first will be NATing. It will be using my home network to give the domain controller direct access to the internet. The second one will be an internal adapter that will bridge the internet connection in the virtual environment. Let's proceed with the Server 2019 installation. Double-click on DC to start. Choose region and keyboard language settings. You will have to now choose the operating system type to be installed. Go with the option Standard Evaluation, Desktop Experience to have a graphical user interface. The other option will basically present you a command line. Press Next. Accept the licensing terms and select Custom Install. The installation will now start. After the installation is finished, you will be asked to choose a password for our administrator account. Not recommended at all, but for the sake of simplicity I will choose the same password for all accounts created in this lab. For the people who haven't seen or used VirtualBox before, to do Ctrl-Alt-Delete, you need to use the Input tab on the top. Click on it and select Keyboard. Click Insert Ctrl-Alt-Delete. The VM will not recognize when you do it on your keyboard. As soon as you log in, you will be presented with server management. We will spend a lot of time there, but for the moment let's start somewhere else. Minimize it. Along with VirtualBox, I downloaded the VirtualBox extension pack that can be obtained from the same website. It only takes 1 minute to install, and really what it does for you is, it allows you to resize the VM window and it will prevent lagging. To install it, on your VM window settings, select Devices. Insert Guest Edition CD image. It will load automatically. Open File Explorer. Select this PC. You will see the VirtualBox Guest Editions. Click to open. Select the AMD 64 option and install. When finished, don't reboot the system, instead, finish and shut down the VM. Start DC again. When it boots, log in. Give it a minute and try to resize the VM. It should work right away, but if it doesn't work, just minimize and maximize again the window until it works. Now with this out of the way, let's proceed by identifying our two network adapters. It will prevent future mistakes. Our main concern is with the second adapter, the one that is facing our internal network. It is very simple to spot it. By double-clicking the adapter you will be able to see if the adapter is sending and receiving packets. If it is, then that is our first adapter, and if it isn't, it's the second. More differences like the IP, subnet mask, DNS and DHCP server's IP can be observed under details. To our healthy first adapter I will give the name Internet, and to our internal adapter let's just call it Internal. Now what's left for us to do is to set up the IP addressing for our internal adapter. Select Properties and double-click TCP IP version 4. Select Use the following IP address. Insert the IP 172.16.0.1. For the subnet mask, 255.255.255.0. Default gateway will be empty as the domain controller will serve as default gateway. For our DNS, please bear in mind that once we install Active Directory services in our server it automatically installs DNS, and it's going to use itself as DNS server. So we can use its own IP address, 172.16.0.1, or the loopback address, 127.0.0.1. Let's close all windows as now is time to install our domain services. Let's close all windows and it's time to change our computer name for easy identification in the network. Right-click on Start menu. Select System. Rename PC. I'll call it DC for Domain Controller. Click OK and reboot. It's time to install our domain services. On Server Manager, select Add Roles and Features. Press Next. Leave Role Base selected and press Next. Now select our server. Press Next. Let's select Active Directory Domain Services. Click on it. Add features, and proceed with the installation. Do you see flag on top right? At this point the installation of the software for Active Directory Domain Services was done, but we actually didn't created the domain yet. So, select Promote the server to a domain controller. We will access the deployment configuration window. Let's create a new forest. I'm calling mine mydomain.com. Press Next. Select the password and Next. Here the system will assign the domain name automatically. When finished, press Next until you get to Prerequisites check window. The prerequisites check will run for a while, but when the green sign shows on top, you can install. When finished, let it reboot. Observe now that we will be logging into my domain. Add the administrator password and log in. Now it's time to get my own administrator account. Open Start menu. Select Windows Administrative Tools. Choose Active Directory Users and Computers. Right-click on mydomain.com. Add New. Organizational Units. Naming it _admins. Finish. Then on _admins. Right-click and select New User. I am naming it Pedro Goncalves. My admin name for login will PEA, for admin, P. Goncalves. For now I am going to choose the option, not able to change password. Now, even though we just created an account for an admin, it is still not an admin account. To change this, let's right-click this user. Go on to Properties. On the top, select Member of. Click Add in the bottom. And where it says, enter the object name to select. Right, Domain Admins. Select Check on the right. Apply and finish. Now let's switch to our brand new admin account. Now that we logged back in, it is time to take care of our network address translation. This will allow our clients in the internal network to access the internet through the domain controller. Let's go back to Server Manager. Select Add Roles and Features. Press Next. Select your server. Now search for Remote Access and select it. Press Next until you get to Role Services. Once at Role Services, select Routing and add the features. Press Next until you can install. On the top right, click on Tools. Select Routing and Remote Access. Right-click on DC. Configure and enable routing and remote access. Press Next. Select Network Address Translation. Click Next. On Use the Public Interface. Choose our first adapter called Internet. And finish. If by any chance you can't access the public interface, just close the window and restart the routing and remote access process again. When finished, refresh DC and exit. Now it's time to set up DHCP server, router details and our internal network address scope. Open Server Management. Select Add Roles and Features. Press Next. Next. Select our server. Search for DHCP server and select it. Add features and press Next. Next. And Next again. Install when ready. Let's set up DHCP settings. On Server Manager window, top right. Select Tools. Search for DHCP and open. Expand dc.mydomain.com. Let's now define our router. Right-click IPv4 folder and open Server Options. Click on Configure Options. Select Router. On IP address write 172.16.0.1 and press Add. Apply and finish. Now for our network IP scope. Right-click on IPv4 and select New Scope. For the sake of simplicity, my scope name will be 172.16.0.100 to 200. Click Next. Our first address will be 172.16.0.100. Last address, 172.16.0.200. Our subnet mask will be a /24. That is 255.255.255.0. Press Next. We are not defining any IP exclusions, so press Next. For simplicity, defined lease time of 8 days is fine. Click Next. Press Yes and activate scope. Our router address is 172.16.0.1. Click Add on the left and press Next. Now you should see parent domain as mydomain.com. An IP address as 172.16.0.1. Activate the scope and finish. Now expand dc.mydomain.com. If the icons show as red, you have to authorize and refresh for it to activate. If it is green, it's working perfectly fine. The server setup is finished at this point. The only thing we can do now is to go ahead and add a user so that we can use it on our Windows 10 client machine that we will create very soon. Let's go to Start menu. Expand Windows Administrative Tools. And choose Active Directory Users and Computers. Once the window opens, expand mydomain.com. Right-click on Users. And select Add New User. I'll create my own user account. Name is Pedro. Surname is Goncalves. My login name will be P. Goncalves. Let's click Next. Add password. We are going to leave selected the option to change the password on the first login. Let's create and finish. This user will be automatically added to our domain. Since we are finished with our server for now, let's minimize it and proceed to the creation of our Windows 10 client. Let's get back to the VM Manager. On the top, click on New. I am naming this machine Client 1. Add the ISO image for the Windows 10 installation. Select Skip Unattended Installation and click Next. I'm giving this machine 4 GB of RAM and 4 CPU cores. Click Next. Next. And finish. Before we proceed with Windows installation, there is still some settings we need to change. On the top, go to Settings. Under General, select Advanced. Here change Shared Clipboard and Drag and Drop to Bidirectional. Proceed to the Network tab on the left. Here change the first adapter setting from NAT to internal network. Now press OK. Double-click our Client 1 machine to initiate the Windows 10 installation. Choose your region and keyboard settings and click Install. For the purpose of this video, we will install a limited version of Windows 10 that does not need to be activated. When Windows Setup prompts you for a key, select the option below that says, I don't have a product key. It will ask which OS you would like to install. I am going with Windows 10 Pro. After selection, press Next. Accept the terms and run Custom Install. Press Next and the installation will start. I will skip to the end of the installation now. Choose your region, keyboard setting, and proceed. This next bit takes a while to conclude, so I will skip forward again. Select Setup for personal use. On Windows account, Select the offline account on the bottom left corner. Then on the same corner select Limited Experience. I will name this account Client. It will make it simple to distinguish in the future. Add password and proceed. Now we need to choose 3 security questions and their answers to proceed. I am simply going to skip this part. Now, because we are in a lab environment, I'll just cancel anything related to tracking, privacy settings and Cortana. When the installation is finished, Windows will load automatically in the account we just created. As we did in Domain Controller, I will start by installing our VM guest additions to be able to expand our VM environment. I will shut down the machine after installation and boot it again so that these changes can take effect. Let's open Network Connections. Select Ethernet. And double-click the adapter. Let's see our internal network adapter details. You can see that this computer was already leased an IP address, it has a DHCP address and a DNS address. It is connected to the internet and is receiving and sending packet. Close all windows. Let's use command line. Open CMD. Let's try the command who am I. We can observe that this user is called client and that we are at this machine. The name is not optimal. We will have to change this computer's name so that we can be easy identifiable on our network domain. Speaking of domain, is this computer already connected to the domain? I am going to use the same command but with the extension /fqdn. This command is used to show you the fully qualified domain name. So, who am I, /fqdn. And an error. Our computer has already connection to the internet, but it is still not a part of our domain. Right-click on Start menu. Select System of our domain. On Related Settings, select the option Rename this PC, Advanced. Choose the Change option, rename this computer and join a domain or workgroup. Here I am changing the name of the computer to Client1 and tick the box where it says Domain. My domain is mydomain.com. Click OK. You will be prompted now to use an official domain account. I am going to log with the admin account that I created for myself in the beginning. After using your login details and clicking OK, the system will ask to reboot, so do that. After rebooting, you can observe now that it says that you are signing in my domain. From this point on, any user of the domain can log in through this PC. I am going to log with my regular user account now. You can see that I am now being asked to change my password. This is due to the option that me, as admin, selected at the time of this user creation. The option forces you to change the password on your first login. Let's open command line. On the search bar, let's write CMD. Double-click command prompt. I am starting with the command, who am I? You will be able to observe that now it identifies me and my domain. Let's retry the extension FQDN. And now, you can observe that it identifies me as a user of the mydomain.com under the domain controller. Perfect. Let's test the internet connectivity. Now we are using the command ipconfig. We can see the IP that was leased to us, the subnet mask we are using, and our default gateway. Let's ping our domain controller. Write ping DC and press enter. You can see by the report that the connection was made instantly. Now let's try to ping Google. Right, ping google.com. Press enter. The connection has been made perfectly. At this point, it is safe to say that there is connectivity all the way to the default gateway. The domain controller is properly NATing and forwarding us to the internet. Let's switch to our server now. I want to show you where you can find information on the DHCP lease we got on our Client 1 computer. On Server Manager, go to Tools on the top right corner. Select DHCP. Expand dc.mydomain.com. Expand IPv4. And double-click on Addresses list. At the moment we only have the one IP leased, but it is accurate to assume that in a real corporate environment you will see countless in this exact same place. Let's minimize these windows. I also want to show you where can you find the information about the computers connected to our domain. Click on Start menu. Expand Windows Administrative Tools. Select Active Directory Users and Computers. Expand mydomain.com. And select Computers. Same thing here. You can expect that in a corporate environment it will have a lot of devices connected to the domain. I understand that this was a long video and the information in it might not have completely come across just yet. If this is the case, take your time, go back to the beginning and try it again. If possible, try it until you no longer need the video to be able to complete the lab. It will develop a better understanding what's going on and your base knowledge. For me, it is time to wrap things up. This video will conclude here. I will be using this exact same lab for my future videos so you can see them as continuation in your learning process. With this, we created a very basic, mini corporate network that anyone can try to do at home at no cost. I honestly had a lot of fun with this project, and if you followed these steps with me, thank you, and congratulations. I will be adding more videos soon. Again, thank you for joining me today. I hope you had as much fun as I did. I will see you on the next one.